Welcome to another episode of Tank Talks, your personal think tank for all things startups and venture capital. I'm your host, Matt Cohen, founder and managing partner at Ripple Ventures. On today's show, we welcome founder and CEO of Mash, Jared Nusinoff, to discuss how crypto is helping creators and developers monetize their work easier. Jared shares how his time working at Bain Consulting and then at Google in Mountain View, California, working in the strategy and then product roles, helped him think about solving complex problems at scale. We also dig into Jared's time launching an outdoor travel company in Canada before the pandemic and the lessons he learned from that experience. Next, we jump into Jared's journey into the crypto world and why he decided to launch a creator monetization platform on the Bitcoin Lightning Network as his next venture. Finally, we asked Jared to explain how Mash's pay-as-you-enjoy model is better than the traditional subscription models out there and how he ended up raising his $6 million financing round earlier this year. But before we get started today, as our listeners probably know by now, the team at Ripple is always focused on helping our founders and portfolio companies find the best partners to work with. And when it comes to corporate finance and cash management, there's nobody we recommend more than the team at Jeeves. At Ripple, we manage all our fund expenses and employee credit cards using Jeeves. The team at Jeeves helped me get my team set up with physical and virtual cards in days. I was able to allow my teammates to expense items in multiple currencies, allowing them to pay for anything, anywhere, at any time. We weren't asked for any personal guarantees or to pay any setup or monthly SaaS fees. Not only does Jeeves save us time, but they also give us up to 3% cash back on our purchases, including expenses like Google, Facebook, or AWS every month. The best part is Jeeves puts up the cash and you settle once every 30 days in any currency you want, unlike some other corporate card companies that make you prepay every month. Listeners of Tank Talks can get set up today with a demo of Jeeves and take advantage of our Tank Talks special with a $250 sign-up bonus and skip the waitlist that already has thousands of companies waiting on it by visiting tryjeeves.com/Tank Talks. Use referral code Tank Talks to get set up today. Now let's jump into the tank for this week's episode with Jared Nusinoff, founder of Mash. Thanks for joining us in the tank today, Jared.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Great to be here.
You know, Jared, you've been working in and around the tech world for quite some time now, but you started your career, like so many of our other guests, working out in consulting at Bain. It would be great if you could share with our audience your career journey, starting off working in consulting, and how you ended up moving into startups and technology later on.
Sure. If I go through my career, it's always been passion and interest-driven. And so I'd say my first actual job was leading canoe trips throughout Ontario and a little bit of Quebec, if I remember correctly. So taking kids on 3 to 10 day trips through the wilderness. And then from there, I spent some time at Bain, which was, I thought, a great way to learn how to, be in the corporate world, work with large organizations, understand how different large strategic decisions were made. And it was a great experience there, but I always had a passion for technology. I was, selling things online back in the 90s, just as like a 13 or 14-year-old. And I figured it was, 2010, what better place to start exploring that than Google at the time. And so I spent 7.5 years there, majority as a product manager, which is great. Afterwards, I ended up leaving tech to jump into sort of a startup in travel, completely different type of world. And now I'm leading Mash.
So you threw away the paddles and life jackets and maps to try to help navigate other companies through their own journeys on trips. How was your time at Bain impactful in terms of the way you thought about building processes and sort of navigating, the crazy world of corporate strategy?
I think it taught me a lot about communication and structure. There's a few things I like to incorporate in how I approach working with people. One is, don't make them think. It's a design principle we use in our products and something I try to incorporate even in an email or a conversation, make sure everything's clear and understandable. And in many ways that stems from working at Bain, having to advise or share information with people who are extremely busy, have lots of expertise in the space you're talking about, and you get only so much time to help them. And so that was a big part of it.
That's interesting. I like that don't make them think kind of philosophy. I kind of incorporate that into sometimes emails I send out where I want to make it as simple and easy as possible for them to say yes or no. Here's a link to click. Here's a FAQ for all the questions you probably have in your head. And so we don't have to go back and forth on like 6 email chains. Is that what you mean? Like, give us an example of what you mean by not making people think.
I think that's a great example. But if you just take that principle and apply it across the board, it's, do you have a button in your app that has just an icon? Or does it have the name of what it is, and is it clear and is in the right place so they know where to click to get the information? Do you have 50 different things there or not? Or you can even extend it to, do you want a full touch screen for your card dash so you have to think about and look over for how to change the volume, or just one knob that's easily understandable based on the feel of your fingers? And so I think it goes from an email to what information you include, how you structure it, how you give them ways to access more information, all the way to the design of nav in a car.
That's interesting. It's just like, don't assume people know something like you already know because they're coming at it from a totally different situation. Well, that's an interesting thing. And I'm sure your time working at Google in Mountain View and also in Waterloo, Canada, for almost 8 years, first in strategy, obviously coming from Bain, and then your time working in product must have also been pretty exciting, and learning and applying a lot of those things you learned from Bain. So you touched on a lot of cool products, I believe, in your time, especially at Google, working at the Fiber TV and helping build out some of their app ecosystem. What were some of the best lessons you learned during your time at Google working as a product manager that you still rely on today?
I think about when you're building, let's say, a business internally at a company, which is what a product manager role really is, at least at Google it was, or at a startup, is there's two high-level things that matter. You need to build a movement, and that's everything from team, sales, go-to-market, get people excited about what you're doing, and then build an amazing product. And so internally at Google, whether it's storytelling or recruiting, it's not as though higher up person says, hey, Jared, here's 10 people to work on that one thing you've convinced me. You still have to do that, but now it's convince the best people internally to come join you and work with you. Convince other organizations to give you resources, because it's not just a vertical organization, it's horizontal as well. So, you need a designer on your team. You now need to convince the design lead within that sub-organization. You need customer support for the special launch. Let's go talk to them. So, and you want them to join and be excited about it. And so almost above all of that, it's what's your big, bold mission? It needs to be, really important. It needs to be ambitious, but believably achievable. That's what I found working internally at Google and then throughout my career as one of the primary ingredients needed to attempt something that will be really large and successful.
That's so cool. It's kind of like you were recruiting for your own startup within the massive organization of Google, but you didn't have venture funding to go. You just had the mission you were on and the story that you were trying to sell to these people internally to come and recruit them to come and join your mission and the product you were hoping to build, right?
I think if you want to tackle a big project and a big effort, not let's just change this little thing within a product, you need that mandate and that excitement. So you are doing that, you are recruiting, and it is throughout the organization, up and down.
Now, how did Google kind of frame the success and failure mindset for people who are going on these sort of missions from the beginning? Was it always like, it's okay to fail, or, this has to be impactful by 100x because we're such a big company? If it's not big enough, it doesn't matter, like go big or go home. What was the sort of mindset that they set you out on to guide you through that journey and mission?
Google, even at the time I joined in when I was a product manager, is really big. And different groups, organizations, leaders had different approaches and philosophies. And I don't want to speak for all of Google. I had only my experience there. But what I saw was there were some patterns. One is this has to be $1 billion business for us to really care and put the organization's weight behind it. It has to fit in with, the company's mission of organizing, the world's information. I think those were really the high level ones.
Did that make it hard for you to try to live up to that mission at the top level? I remember when I worked, for Royal Bank of Canada, if we were not able to generate enough business to make a difference in the bottom line, you were pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. I assume it was almost the same way when you were trying to build stuff at Google.
Well, there were lots of efforts that weren't necessarily revenue generating. They were strategic and defensive. So you can think of the Chrome browser as one of them, which is prevent disintermediation for search. And so you could say, yes, that is revenue generating by preventing revenue losses through paying other organizations. But there was also lots of time and leeway to get things done. And it wasn't as though you have 6 months to execute launch. They realized certain efforts were really large. Now, I'm not going to say I was sitting at the top saying, let's create an entire division for robotics. That's not me. That they're on the chopping block for those types of efforts that are that large. But internally within the organization, I'm saying, we need to build an app to do X for, name your organization within Google, then I need to have real goals and metrics and things that need to be achieved and, provably show them through over time.
That makes sense. So yeah, it kind of all ratchets up across the organization, but you're not going from your organization or your mission all the way to the top in one one project that you're responsible for. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Until it's what you've done is incredible, has amazing numbers, and then you get showcased because
Exactly.
People want to show that their organization's doing great things, and that is your role, right? It's your role is to create something amazing and be able to have it shared.
Yes, absolutely. That makes sense. Now, before starting your newest company, which we'll get into in a moment, you took some time off to launch something really cool to kind of go back to your roots with a company called Out Here Travel to help provide experiences across Eastern and Central Canada to help people enjoy tripping in Canada, basically, the right way. Now, first off, this is an incredible project that you launched. So congratulations on that. And secondly, what was that experience like starting your first official company that was completely outside the tech world? And what lessons did you learn from that experience as a first-time founder?
Sure. Well, first, actually, a question people always ask me is, why in the world are you going to start like an adventure travel company with buses going across Canada? And it was, you can have lots of positive. What drives me is creating positive impact, ideally with the lowest amount of unintended negative consequences. And I look throughout, you can go broad and say this is going to impact a lot of people a little bit, or maybe a lot of people a lot, which I didn't find anything in that space. I was also partially disenfranchised with tech. I didn't see anything that was really exciting for me to spend my time on. And then when I look back at two things, one was my early career leading canoe trips, taking people out of their comfort zone, giving them the freedom to disengage from the real world and just enjoy the moment and, eat when they want to eat, sleep when they want to sleep, paddle all day in the outdoors. You could see life-changing experiences and relationships formed. And then I saw what was happening in New Zealand as a travel destination. And arguably Canada is more beautiful, has more cultural diversity, and sort of a playground to showcase to people. And I thought, I can do this better than any trip that exists in the world today. Why not give it a go? Now, let's talk through the lessons, right? So we operated for a few years. First year was me and a bus. We were scaling, had a bunch of guides, had product market fit, an NPS of 80, which is unheard of in travel. We had people going on 26-day loops across Central Eastern Canada, trying to come back for winter. And I was about to buy, 4 or 5 more buses. We were getting brochured across the world. And it got pandemicked. So I'm happy I didn't buy those buses in February 2020. And so just take a look back, what did I learn? One is having respect for anyone who builds a real world business. It is incredibly difficult in terms of capital cost, time, seasonality, dealing with people in the real world. It's messy. 2 is, I think that building a business, whether it's in the real world or it's software, they're very similar. It's create something amazing that people love and want to use and will recommend to a friend because it's that much better. It's 10x better than anything they've ever done before. And even the funnels to get people in, whether it's through advertising, word of mouth, are very, very similar. Now, they're unique for every single product, every single experience where you target, but there's lots of similarities. And the last one is, which is also part of, respect to anyone who's trying to do this, because it isn't financially driven. It's about experience driven usually. Is regulatory capture in Canada is aggressive, like the licensing, regulatory requirements, insurance needed to even operate. It, in many ways, I think, has prevented a travel industry from naturally forming here that isn't just go to 3 cities in Niagara Falls. That showcases what is amazing about this country. So that's, and I think that's happened across lots of industries when you talk about the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure a lot of software founders, first-time founders especially, think like, oh, this is easy, right? You don't need an office. You don't need to really interact with a lot of things in the real world. Everything's up in the cloud, and we're just smooth sailing, But when you integrate with the real world, then it becomes a lot more confusing and also a lot more red tape, like you just experienced in your job. But, the fact that you went through that experience, got a little lucky that you didn't end up pouring, more fuel in the fire before the pandemic took hold of the entire world and travel industry, and had a great experience sort of learning through that. And so is it planning on coming back in a second form, or is it completely shut down and you kind of handed over the keys?
Completely shut down. Some of the buses are out in Banff now. So I actually finally sold the last one. What was it, a month and a half ago, after paying for parking every month for about 2 years. I can tell you the buses have held their value incredibly well up until that moment of no international travel because of some unnamed pandemic. There's no plan to go back to it. I love what I'm doing at MASH. I think it's incredibly impactful or can be to the world. And maybe one day, if I'm really, really wealthy and want to take an easier approach to a bootstrapped, non-VC fundable adventure business to build up the infrastructure, I'll do that. But it's not in the cards or thought process at all.
Well, next time we'll bring you on for the second round of the podcast talking about Out Here Travel Take 2. But for today, we're going to talk about how crypto is helping creators and developers monetize their work easier, and how your new company, MASH, is on a mission to help creators get paid for their work. So to kick things off, can you explain how the existing Web 2 infrastructure has failed at supporting creators in their career goals, and then how blockchain technology is trying to help creators find more powerful ways to monetize their work?
Sure. Let's start with, how do you make money online today? One is, let's put ads everywhere. And you need millions of users. The ad rates are low. You're not directly monetizing based on value or quality. It's based on attention, which it depends on if you're like in a finance vertical. So you can have affiliates to credit cards or to brokerage accounts, et cetera. But it's so far away from, what you're actually creating. The next one, which is, subscriptions, upfront purchases model, which makes sense for some. It's a great model. It works for big bundles. It works for that brand that you know really well, that author that you want to buy the book, etc. But it doesn't fit most models. It's such a high purchase barrier to make that decision, that commitment. You need to use it all the time. And the third one is platform, or I call it micro distributions, which says, hey, we're going to pay, $10 a month for Spotify, and they're going to decide how to distribute it based on listens or other agreements, which again doesn't match the quality and enjoyment back within. It's led to an aggregated internet along a lot of platforms for created content and experiences. Oh, and also these platforms, they censor you, they kick you off, they control what you do. You need to have a certain amount of views before you can even start monetizing. They use their algorithms to decide when you get shown. Like it's a whole can of worms outside of your control. And why is this the case? You've never had money embedded into the internet. So think of it, I almost think of the internet as like, imagine it's not like an arcade, but it is an arcade where everyone has quarters in their pockets. They just happen to be in the internet and they're theirs. Imagine what could happen if you could monetize any interaction, charge for anything for any amount. And so that's sort of getting to the second part of the question, which is how blockchain technology is helping change the fabric of the internet. And I'd say I wouldn't say it's blockchain. I'd say it's Bitcoin. And the reason why is, if you want to separate out blockchain and Bitcoin, Bitcoin is purpose built as money. And it is the way I look at it is the global monetary asset of the future. The other side is these other blockchains, whether it's for asset ownership or for governance, or just trying to pretend to be money and being Bitcoin, but there's 15,000 that have failed. They're not solving those problems. I'm in the pay for experience, value back and forth world, and that's the Bitcoin world that few people realize and know about yet. And we're early, but it unlocks all of these experiences. It's money in your control, exists in the web, sendable any amount, any way you want, programmable, trustless, decentralized. It's just yours, and it works. It doesn't go down. It doesn't have a leader. And it exists today, and there's a full community building on it quietly, but very loud in their own community. And so I look at this as a really exciting time to be building in this space.
So to kind of summarize, the problem with the internet Web 2.0 companies with supporting creators is that they don't have visibility into how their created products or services are being monetized, as well as how they can kind of accelerate their monetization because the algorithms are controlling them, which is the reason why, Elon Musk is trying to buy Twitter, to open up the algorithms to understand what's happening there. Now, There are ways to monetize currently, though, on a bunch of Web 2.0 companies, right? You can have subscriptions as a podcast. You can have, subscriptions or, paywalls for certain things that you're building on Substack. There's ways for you to have newsletters on Twitter. There are people benefiting from the platforms that have created this mass audience for them to use. But you're saying that there's still that big middleman that is blocking a lot of the freedom that you could have if it was a one-to-one relationship. Is that what you're saying, the problem with why creators are trying to get onto Web 3.0?
So I think the definition creator is much broader than who's on, let's say, YouTube, or who's on TikTok or Instagram and all of these things. It's, let's say you create a bunch of content that's super high quality, right? And it's not something you're going to use and subscribe to, but you want to one-time purchase it, whether it's an exclusive video deep dive on, the upcoming boxing fight or a docuseries on a historical event, and you want to earn for it. You've never been able to charge directly for it the right way. Or you have, let's say, a podcast, and you say, you know what, we want to decide what questions should get asked next without spam, and we want to donate everything that we can earn from this to, let's say, the Human Rights Foundation or whatever charity you want. You can have people pay per vote. Pay to have a question added to what people can vote on. Pay for topics that gets unleashed. You can have crowdfunded tip jars. It's not a world where, it has to be a minimum of $5 a month purchase or $10 purchase. You can stream pennies programmatically by scrolling by any event. You can take a game and say, pay a penny to play. Every single time after $5, it's free. And you take away this commitment barrier of that one-time purchase, especially for all of these things that aren't meant to be used every day, which is a very small amount of things. So now you get away from the I'm relying on ads world and only having this, the hardcores who are fanatics pay me $20 to I can engage with add-on interactive components to just for the content and experiences any way you want. It's all net new business models.
Well, so besides the business model part, we know that the power of these centralized platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and the power they control off the content being created on their platform is because, one, they have the network effect of there's a lot of eyeballs that are being sucked in there every single day, especially platforms like TikTok. And therefore, the major ad dollars want to be spent on these platforms. And obviously a large majority of that ad dollars goes into the platforms and not the creators directly. So how is, MASH or just blockchain technology able to create a win-win situation for the value received by the creators if they don't have access to the eyeballs that these centralized platforms obviously have grown to billions over the last, decade or so?
So I think I want to almost categorize different groups of creators and builders and then talk about some of their options. Okay, I am building educational content and videos, and I'm, let's say I'm Khan Academy, but I want to, earn some money. I have a bunch of them on YouTube for distribution. I then have a number on my own site in my own control, and I can charge for them without saying it's $20 a month to first 10 minutes of a video are for free. Then every hour you get charged $3. If you spend $10 a month, everything unlocks. You pass this quiz, you get a discount. You prepay, you get a discount. Those types of things where you remove the commitment barrier. Now, let's take I built a tool to explain code to someone who's a new developer. It goes through code, it can convert into different formats, explains how you write it. There's no social network or network for that. It just lives in their own site and experience, and now they can actually charge for it. Or I built this app for making fantasy maps, or the meme creators that have been relied on advertising, which is the rates are incredibly low. They now can have premium versions without saying pay $10 a month that very few people do. So you have this highly granular payment system and cash that lives right in the web that you can monetize all these things that weren't monetizable before, didn't have a home, even though you can still leverage those distribution channels if they made sense for you.
So you still need to have a bridge, though, to the centralized platforms where the eyeballs live, and then get them over to your, personalized site, which is not going to be easy to discover as a standalone site, given the billions of websites out there. I mean, my wife, for example, is a creator. She just wrote a book called Get Outside to teach young kids how to get outside and do activities. We've had to build our own site, but we've also had to build an Amazon site because we know that that's where a lot of the eyeballs and customers live. So are you saying that, the people who are building these, instruction manuals, developer tool manuals, whatever it is, will have their own standalone site that has Mash to get paid on the, the Bitcoin Lightning Network, but they still need to have a bridge to offer either freemium content or any content to lure those people into their personal site and get them off the centralized platforms?
I don't think a lot of them are actually on these centralized platforms. They might use them with Twitter or with, to get attention from there. But the people who will pay for something, whether it's download high-res versions of my art or engage before the podcast with me to decide questions, they're not going to exist there. They just come to my home. It's why it's like Link.tree and Koji. They're all pushes out to the places that they want to control and that they do control. And some of these sites, it's not just those platforms. It's, I guess, the other aggregator of Google with SEO. But there is, but some of these sites, they already get tens of millions of views per month. They just haven't been able to monetize. So I think we're seeing there is a shift of eyeballs to things that are high quality. And people want to go where there's high quality. It's why do people go to, let's say, a masterclass? It's high quality. And they tell people and they consistently go. But now imagine those people could say, hey, I'm going to charge directly without it being a micro distribution, or for these other things I couldn't charge before.
Got it. So when you kind of came up with the idea for Mash, what was it you were hearing from the creators out there that I'm sure you spoke with many times over that they saw as the exact problem they were facing when it came to either pricing structure or monetization in the, the centralized Web 2.0 world that you're trying to solve now with Mash?
People don't want to subscribe to what I'm creating because it's one-time use or it's infrequent use. I'm dealing with churn. I'm dealing with back catalog reading. I can't charge any other way. I have no way to make money. I spent 4 years. I made 20 grand a year. I gave up. This can only work as a bridge to charging for, speaking engagements or selling a book or something else, which is not what I want to do. So they didn't have that business model. Now, maybe a parallel will help, which helped inform why we took this approach. If you look at the App Store on iPhone, what is it, 10, 15 years old? I'm not good at tracking the years at this age now. But originally it was, here's my app for free with all of these ads over top of it, uninvested because they couldn't make enough money. And then there was buy this app for $10, $5, $2, but you didn't know what you were buying. And that model didn't work until in-app payments came along. And it worked incredibly well for games and other products and services where you'd load up tokens and credits into that one experience, into that one world. So you have to have a minimum love for that world. Just like buying tokens or credits in Fortnite, you have to have a minimum love for Fortnite. And then you could do usage-based pricing, pay for add-ons, boosts, tips, etc. Now imagine you didn't need to have a minimum love for that experience. But instead, you could say, I just have cash to use in any of these with no individual on-ramp, and the money can exist anywhere, usable anywhere, not locked in, or I can just send it back to my wallet to use at the corner store. So it fundamentally changes how value is embedded into everything. And so there's a lot of use cases that we see to start, but a lot more that we will help others build on top of what we're building, or they'll use other platforms that are built on Bitcoin and Lightning Network to create them. And so it's just imagine you're injecting dollars right into the web that is not locked into anything.
Got it. That makes more sense. Thanks for explaining that. Now, you just touched on the Lightning Network that you're building on. First, maybe explain to our audience, if they're not familiar with the Lightning Network, how it was created, why it was created, and then why you chose to decide to build on it to solve this problem.
So the Lightning Network is a technology that builds on top of Bitcoin, but it is part of Bitcoin. It's real Bitcoin that's connected, and it allows you to use, without going too technical, just contracts that are cryptographically secure. And they're safe. They don't break. They're just, they're just real. They're there. And they allow you to send money anywhere around the world for any amount instantly at effectively no to low cost. It's decentralized. It doesn't have a leader. There's multiple protocol implementations. They all work together. That's what Lightning Network does to Bitcoin. So it's the best way to allow value transfer between parties online today with Bitcoin. And they say, okay, well, why Bitcoin? Why not create your own coin? Why not use Solana? Okay, there's a number of reasons. But I'll just start with Bitcoin just works. It doesn't change. Every 10 minutes, a block goes through. The supply is hardened. There's no leader. There's no, there's a hardened community that's protecting it. It's the fastest growing network of all time. It's decentralized, actually decentralized, not in name, in actuality. I have nodes running that I can verify every single transaction on the ledger. And it's a Raspberry Pi with a 1 terabyte hard drive. Anyone can verify that Bitcoin is real and works. And then there's something I like to call embedded density, which is, okay, let's say I create the exact same thing as Bitcoin and build this community. I'd have a problem of like, how do I convince someone to use this new Jared token? It's dead on arrival because it's now you need to assume that a network will build around it, which is incredibly hard. But with Bitcoin, you can buy things on Shopify stores. You can buy things in countries. Certain countries are running entirely on Bitcoin and Lightning Network. You can transfer it to an exchange in any country around the world and convert it into your local currency. You can send it between any wallet. You can send it to your own wallet. So there's just all these different places to use it, and it's growing exponentially right now. And I think in a year or two, everyone will wake up and say, wow, what just happened with money on the web?
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, for people who may have been following Bitcoin's journey, the Lightning Network was created after, I believe, the SegWit changeover in 2017. And then it was created as a way because the network was extremely clogged up and it was taking forever to get transactions through. And it was not comparable to what like Visa or MasterCard's network could actually process. Is that correct?
I would describe it as, think of Bitcoin as the base monetary layer. And if you want to keep it decentralized, can't have too many transactions because everyone needs to have these like massive hard drives, like houses upon houses of hard drives to store all the information. And then there's only a few companies or one company that has it and they can do whatever they want. And it becomes centralized and it just becomes an expensive database. And so Bitcoin has a limit on transactions per year. As think of it like base money, like it's the global central bank that just doesn't change anything. It just operates. But you needed a way to, it also had 10 minutes settlement time. And so, while that might be work if you want to send someone like a wire, it's a much better version of a wire today that's verifiable and just works. But if you said, I want to send someone a penny or send money back and forth very, very quickly, or scale it to transactions like Visa, this is the technical solution for how to do it with it being actual Bitcoin. It's the best technical solution we have today, and it just works.
Do you explain how the payments are actually flowing? Because I believe you have to set up, separate wallets, and then you have to actually have Bitcoin in the account. So like, how are you helping users who may not have any Bitcoin get started with their own wallet to be able to interact with Mash and then eventually the Lightning Network?
So our goal is to make it the easiest way possible to have access to value, which is Bitcoin and Lightning, into the in the web. So what we do is, let's say a creator or builder or app has a site, they want to monetize it. They take a little bit of code from us, and all of a sudden there's a Mash wallet that lives right there. Think of like the intercom widget. There's no download, it's just there. And now you might say, the consumer, the user, I don't have any Bitcoin. Like, how do I load it? How do I deal with this? And so we'll have a variety of options. One is for the Bitcoin and Lightning people. They can just send money from Cash App, connect their nodes, send money from Kraken that all have Lightning enabled. There's 100 million plus people who have Lightning and don't even realize it yet. If you have Bitcoin on an exchange, which separately, if you hold Bitcoin, take it into self-custody. But that's another rant I'll save for another day. The other one is, if you don't have that, you can buy a wallet from us and you will get an instant bonus of the exact of $15 for $15 that you can use instantly right there. So buy a wallet for $15, you get $15 of Bitcoin at the current exchange rate, we eat the cost, and now you're off and running. And guess what? If like 5 days later or 7 days later, you say, I don't have all these places I love with Mash, let's send it to my other Lightning wallet, or send it to my Bitcoin wallet, or send it to an exchange and convert to Canadian or US dollars, go right ahead. Like, it's just your money. There's no lock-in. And so that's what we're doing. There's a lot of tech behind the scenes that I think could take us a really long time to go through, but you can see the underlying protocols. They're all based on the Bolt spec. They're open source. There's lots of implementations. They work together, and it's pretty incredible that you can have all these experiences just talking money and sending value back and forth amongst each other with no intermediary.
So you've obviously explained the benefits of building on the Lightning Network, but how are you helping some of the customers who've set up Mash wallets protect themselves and their wallets on the Mash platform from being attacked or being hacked? We've seen in a lot of the crypto platforms out there.
First, I'll start with Lightning is very secure. Same with Bitcoin. It doesn't result in similar types of hacks or scams that happen in other networks or other chains. But like anything, if you have value in a wallet and it's connected to the web, there are risks. So what we do is first we tell everyone that this is meant to be a wallet that you use for content spend only, and that you shouldn't be storing lots of money in it. We restrict it and we say like, oh, you don't have more than $200 in this. That's not the purpose of this. Two is it's only accessible via your device, depending on the login and controls that you use. So if you have $20 in this wallet, and you really care about the $20, use a secure password. We can't get around like phishing attacks or someone getting your device, getting your access and sending money out. That's an individual problem. That's not really, it's like leaving your wallet at a restaurant. We can't really protect someone from those types of mistakes. And the third one is like you hear about, I guess, MetaMask, people stealing the seed phrases and grabbing all the value, or the Bored Ape or whatever it is. We don't really have that problem because Lightning works a little bit differently. And so a user has to agree to, on each domain or each site, to say, yes, I'll make a payment, confirm that the address they want to send and receive to anywhere is where they want to send it. So there are those protections. And they can also set up a budget or not. They can say, hey, on this domain, this site, I will contribute while I'm doing this. Or no, ask me every single time. I don't want to start paying for these things without agreement because I don't trust this place. So money can't ever just be sent through Mash embedded in a site unless there's an agreement or what we call a contract between that user and the creator or builder.
That definitely makes more sense from what people are being seen on MetaMask, whether they've authorized their wallets to be connected to a bunch of different protocols, and then they forget about them. And then obviously that exposes them when those protocols potentially get hacked. So thanks for sharing that. Now, I got to ask, what kind of creators and builders are you seeing using Mash or will be using Mash? And what areas of the creator ecosystem are you most excited about working with?
Sure. So we're early days in Mash. We just opened up and are starting to launch with a number of, early partners, whether it's sort of a Drudge Report style website to pay to access links at really small amounts, or someone saying, hey, pay to access my email or fill out a form because I want to prevent the spam and the inbound to people who really care and it gets donated, or to access content, articles, education, books, video live streams, a voting widget to decide what they should talk about. So there's a lot of interest across a lot of different segments. And we've built our platform in a way that is generalized, which you can extend to all of these with basic building blocks that we're building out ourselves. And we're going to let people build out on top of it so that they don't have to deal with the Lightning infrastructure, so that user accounts can be across services, et cetera. Now, what am I most excited about? Maybe it makes sense to talk about where these types of monetization options don't fit, or where there's like, it's an add-on versus a core business. Big budget movies, big budget content, like large games. They might inject Lightning a little bit, but they're subscription models. They're one-time large purchase models. Like, this is not going to be Star Wars is now like pay-as-you-go movies. The other one is like, if I go through the list, there's content like education, how-to guides, and where we'll fit in is highly differentiated in quality. If you want to talk about like the Reuters news reports being sent on every single website, no one's going to pay for that. So you need something that people are going to be willing to pay for. Maybe not all up front because they get some free access, they like it, then they contribute as they go because they don't have to make that big one-time purchase. They don't have that purchase commitment barrier. Podcast, video, and time. You can have, whether it's an educational series, whether it's a deep dive on fighting techniques, whether it's, the list goes on, or an app, tool, or game. So I want to have this little tool to help me trade options, or help me understand certain data and analytics, or give me access to part of a spreadsheet or a list of these VCs to reach out to who are focused on this space. Someone can create that, start charging for it, charge a small amount, and make way more money than any alternative.
It's like if someone made a bunch of templates that you want to use in your work that you obviously need to run with like very low code or something, whether it's like a Notion template or an Airtable or something you want to help manage something at home, or you want someone to build a, what are those, Arduino or Raspberry Pi devices, but it already has custom software that they've built for you that you can go plug in at home. You're talking about like things like that are very like niche, but also very scalable.
Exactly. And they can charge anything. So downloads for mods for games, right? How do you say, oh, download this like mod for 25 cents or for 50 cents? Okay, now you can do that. Or a high res version of a background image instead of it all being going to one platform that takes 70% of the cut. Now you can say, oh, my best ones are only on my site. I charge a little bit more and I take 100%. So it extends absolutely to all of those. And it's not even just a Notion template or an Airtable template. Now imagine someone wants to create an Airtable with tons of really valuable information for a niche. They can say some of it is free because I'm going to spin this up into a site visualization, and some of it I'm going to charge for. So now they can monetize their data repository and their information.
That is very interesting. Like you can take apart like the 500 pixels model for like stock images for high quality photos that people want to use in work. Makes sense. Now, what kind of competitors then are you seeing in this space, or which ones do you hope to displace with the launch of Mash?
I think we're so early in terms of injecting value like this for all of these segments that there's so much landscape for people to create new models or new platforms like what we're building. In the some people call it the value for value space. We see podcasting 2.0 apps where people are actually charging by streaming time or donating by streaming time or adding boosts to engage or ask questions. There's a bunch of really cool apps doing that. There's chat apps that are similar to that. There's also, pay with Lightning to get access to my Discord or my Telegram or to send a message. So there's lots of really interesting things there, or an extension to give you access to your Lightning directly into a site. So there's lots of attempts that way. I think what we're doing is saying, oh, anyone who has something on their own stack, don't come to Mash. Go to your own place, your own control. You don't like us, you kick us off, and we'll help you monetize and build these new monetization models. Now, back to like macro or like higher level, what's competition? Competition is for these creators, these builders, these developers, it's the attention that they get from their users to them versus alternatives. And then are we the right business model for them versus something else? And so some I think we could be core, and some I think we can be add-on.
Well, I'm very excited to see who you displace in this industry, because I think it definitely has a lot more benefits than what you're seeing out there today. Now, you only launched the company in March 2021 and have already built a world-class engineering team and design team. And after raising $6 million seed round from the co-leads of Castle Island Ventures and our good friends at Whitecap Ventures, you guys are ready to keep going and building forward on the momentum. So can you tell us how the round came together and what the funds exactly will be used for?
Sure. So we went through the classic VC, roadshow, talk to all our network and get warm intros to VCs that we thought could be great partners that understood the space or had some ties to related spaces. And then, had the opportunity to, in many ways, have a choice of partners. And, the goal being build the best team, and the goal being to build the best group of people around this to help scale it, or, scale it and grow it. And so use of funds, I go back to, I think one of the earlier statements is building the product and building the movement, and that's people and for most of the funds. And so we're going to be cautiously growing given where the market is today to make sure our burn isn't too high until we can get to product market fit, and focus on the best team of doers who can help us achieve the mission. So it's engineers, go to market, but really multi-talented individuals who have drive, ambition to not just uncover problems, but, understand and figure out the solutions to them.
And given you're building the monetization platform for creators globally, I assume you're a remote first team building and hiring remote and globally?
Yes. Well, we launched or founded remote first. So the team came together, and I'd only met one person actually in real life until 6 months later. And then we all did an on-off site. So rent a cottage up in Gravenhurst and spend 5 days there to actually get to know each other. Forced collaboration, or what we call it forced fun internally. It's culture of you sort of rather be somewhere else, but we're forced to have fun for business purposes. So we did that. We've done it twice. So I've met one person 3 times, one person once, 5 people twice, and one person who just joined our team yesterday, not yet in person. And we're fully distributed. So we have a few in Ontario. We have Spain, San Diego, Florida, and Iceland.
Wow, that's amazing. Good luck coordinating all those time zones, but I'm sure it's been a lot of fun getting to meet them in person after getting to know them online as their avatars for the last several months, which is pretty cool. Now, before we wrap things up, we always ask our guests for their fast favorites. So first off, your favorite podcast.
I will go with On the Brink, which is actually by the Castle Island Venture folks. I think it's one of the smartest takes on Bitcoin, Web3, blockchain, with some of the best guests that you wouldn't expect and are only seen on theirs.
I've heard only good things about that one. Next one is your favorite newsletter or blog.
I'm going to throw out 3. Is that all right?
No problem.
All right. We got Fred Wilson's AVC, Ben Hunt's Epsilon Theory. If you want to understand narratives in the world around you today, I think it's an incredible read. And then Stratechery by Ben Thompson in terms of high-level big tech strategy.
Ben Thompson one is fantastic, and Fred Wilson is an OG, and that one's great. I've never listened to the Epsilon Theory one by Ben Huntz, but I'll have to check that one out. Favorite tech gadget?
I'll go with the Cold Card, which is a signing device people think of as like a cold wallet. While it is tech forward, it allows you to do Bitcoin transactions fully air-gapped with lots of wild security features. It's really absolutely incredible what they've created.
Compare it to my Ledger. What's the difference?
Your Ledger is easy to use, but has all these other tokens and is a lot less secure and untrustworthy.
Favorite new trend?
Bitcoin and Lightning Network. I got to go with that, which is driving the unbundling of the internet.
Yep. Got to speak the own truth. Favorite book?
I think if you haven't read the Bitcoin Standard, you should. And then I'll throw out the product and design book, Don't Make Me Think, and then watch the Rocket Surgery Made Easy YouTube video if you want to see how to quickly and easily test products.
Very cool. And last but not least, favorite life lesson?
I don't have any life lessons, nor do I ascribe to life lessons. I guess don't trust the experts or the people who give you life lessons.
That's all we needed to hear. Thanks for joining us in the tank today with Jared Nusinoff, founder of MASH.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Tank Talks. To learn more about this episode, be sure to go to Apple Podcast or Spotify to find more detailed notes on this episode or to check out previous episodes. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and a rating as it helps us out a lot. And hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when new episodes come out. Finally, make sure to give me a follow on Twitter @MattyBCohen or @Tank Talk Podcast to stay up to date on new episodes or to be a guest on our show. Till next time,